All right, today we're going to talk about something that sounds a bit like science fiction, but it's aimed squarely at the heart of our financial system. It's a protocol with a pretty bold name, mathematical gold, and it's all about remaking money as we know it. So let's dive in.
First, let me ask a question that I'm sure you've wondered about. You can send a message or a video to the other side of the planet in an instant. So why? Why does it take days for your money to actually move, or for a stock trade to officially settle? This isn't some random bug in the system. No, this delay, this lag, it's actually built right into the architecture of modern finance.
And that right there is the massive problem this whole idea is trying to fix. We're talking about a systemic, 2-day delay that gums up the works for the entire financial world. It creates friction, it adds cost, and, this is the big one, it piles on a ton of risk. Okay, so this is what the industry calls the T+2 settlement cycle. When you buy a stock, the trade itself happens at time T, but the actual final transfer of the stock for the cash can take up to 2 business days. And during that whole time, the asset is just floating in this weird limbo, an unsettled state. That 2-day window, that's where all sorts of things can go wrong. It's a huge window of risk.
Right, so here's the key thing to wrap your head around. Most of what we think of as digital assets aren't actually the value itself. They're just claims on that value. They're IOUs, promises that have to get passed down a long chain of middlemen to be processed, cleared, and finally settled. Only then do they become real.
So, if the problem is that everything's just a claim, how do you fix it? Well, you have to introduce a totally different kind of money. The sources we're looking at call it substance money. And honestly, it's a simple idea, but the implications are pretty profound.
The difference is actually super simple when you think about it. On one hand, you have claim money. Think of a check or even most digital tokens. They're basically just pointers to value that's held somewhere else. It's a promise to pay. But substance money, that's like a gold coin in your hand, it doesn't point to the value, it is the value. There are no extra steps. It's final, right there and then.
And this quote just nails it perfectly. Substance money isn't backed by anything else. It is the elemental asset itself. The whole goal here is to figure out, how do you create a digital asset that has this exact same property? How do you make something that's pure substance, not just a claim? So, how do you actually do that? How do you create digital substance? Well, the source material lays out a protocol for it, and they call it mathematical gold.
Okay, so here's the core definition, but let's break it down. It's basically a system designed specifically for banks where an asset shows up and is immediately final. Done. There's no waiting period, no clearing process. It functions like a direct deposit of pure, settled value straight onto a bank's books. Here's a good way to visualize it. In our current financial network, everything is just a pointer. This account points to that bank, which holds a claim on this asset. It's all referencing something else. In this new model, the value is inherent. The asset is the network. The value and its finality are literally the same thing. And make no mistake, this isn't some consumer app. This tech is built from the ground up for serious, heavy-duty institutional use. You've got the instant reserve crediting we talked about. You have cryptographic verification, which gives you mathematical certainty, no disputes. It even has real-time dashboards so a bank's treasury team can see the impact on their regulatory capital, like for Basel III, instantly. And it's all packaged up in things like Docker containers to plug right into their existing complex IT systems.
So what's the real knock-on effect of all this? Well, it's huge. It basically collapses what's called the claim stack. Think about all those layers of middlemen, the brokers, the clearinghouses, the custodians. Their entire job is to turn a promise into final value. With this system, they just become unnecessary. This table really breaks down what becomes obsolete. Let's take a look. For instance, you don't need a broker to find a buyer to cash out of an asset, because the asset is the cash. There's no cashing out to do. Or look at clearance. You don't need to wait for days for something to clear because the finality is instant, baked into the transaction itself. The whole system just gets radically simpler.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the real-world impact for a bank. We're not just talking about a minor efficiency gain here. This is about fundamentally changing the very core of how a bank operates, its balance sheet.
First up, settlement time. It goes from T+2, that's 2 days, to T+0, instantaneous. That 2-day risk window we mentioned earlier, it doesn't just get smaller, it's gone. Poof. Next, conversion loss. Think about it. Because you never have to sell the asset to get its value, there's zero loss. No market spreads, no fees, no slippage when you try to liquidate. 100% of the value arrives and 100% of it stays.
And finally, 100% quality. From the very second it hits the balance sheet, this asset is automatically classified as the best of the best, Tier 1, high-quality liquid asset. That immediately strengthens the bank's position from a regulatory standpoint.
So let's just sum it up for a bank. The benefits are immediate and they are powerful. Right away, their balance sheet is stronger. They can actually lend more against their reserves. They get instant liquidity without having to sell a single thing. And of course, their operational costs and risks just fall off a cliff.
And this quote really gets to the absolute core of the whole thing. See, a traditional asset, like a stock or a bond, is a security. To be useful as cash, it needs a buyer. You need someone to take the other side of the trade. But mathematical gold is designed as a settlement unit. It's pure substance. It doesn't need a counterparty because its value isn't based on a future sale. It's self-contained. Now, as big as this idea is, mathematical gold is really just the tip of the iceberg. According to the source material, it's actually the foundation for a much, much larger, and I'd say more radical vision for reinventing finance itself. And yeah, this is where things get pretty wild. The larger project here is about reviving old or even forgotten legal concepts and turning them into new financial engines for the modern world. We're talking about things like a cyber privateering bounty authority or a global corporate asset forfeiture exchange. The core idea seems to be building totally new systems of value that are based on mathematical proof, moving way beyond the traditional financial world that we all know. And that really leaves us with one final, and I think pretty provocative, question to chew on. For centuries, our entire financial system has been built on one thing: trust. Trust in banks, trust in governments, trust in intermediaries. This technology proposes a system built not on trust, but on mathematical certainty. So what happens to the world when math actually becomes more trustworthy than the very institutions that were built on trust? That's the future this concept is asking us to imagine. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.